Hi, today we're going to talk about lines. Lines are interesting because they have a lot of different parts that interconnect. None of the parts are hard to understand, but getting it connected together in your brain so that they all work together is what's difficult. And if you're able to connect as much as you can, that it will make lines easier. And we spend quite a bit of time on lines. So that's what we're going to work on today. So here's an example. Y equals 1/2 x minus 2. And let's just look and talk about the line and all the parts and how they work together. So this is the line. You can see that it's going up. That means it has a positive slope. Slope is the angle that it's tilted at. An example of slope in real life would be a grade on a mountain freeway. So I live in Colorado by I-70, and there's often a 7% grade sign on I-70 to tell you that you're either going downhill or uphill at a fairly steep rate. And that's what's going on with this line. It's going up, so it has a positive slope. If it were going down, it would have a negative slope. To remember this, you can just think of sales going up is a positive thing, sales going down is a negative thing. So if your graph were showing you sales data, that's how that would connect. The other thing about slope is figuring out what it is. If your equation is in this form, this is slope-intercept form, y equals the slope times x, and then a number, that makes it really easy. So the slope is the number in front of the x when it's in this form, so the slope is 1/2. How does that relate to the picture? If you go down to the point, this point, let's say it's -2, -3, down there in the lower part of the line. If you go down there and you count up, I want you to count up one box, and to the right 2 boxes, you will hit the line again. That's because that's what the slope is. So the slope, they call it rise over run. So the rise is 1 box and the run is 2 boxes, both in the positive direction. So up and to the right. And you can do that from any point. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be not on a box, not where the lines cross on your grid. If you go up 1 and over 2, you will still hit the line. Slope is the same all the way along the line. And that's what that means. So let's look at the -2. The -2 is called the y-intercept. What that means is, where does this line cross the y-axis? And if you look on the y-axis at -2, yep, that's where the line is. How does that work? Well, if you're on the y-axis, x is 0. It's not over to the right, it's not over to the left, it's centered right at 0. If you put 0 and for x in your equation, you'll have y equals -2. So that's how you connect that y-intercept with the point that it is and with what's going on in the graph. We also have an x-intercept. That's where the line crosses the x-axis, and that's happening at 4, 0. That is a point. A lot of times students will say the x-intercept is 4. It's actually a point, so it should look like parentheses 4, 0, end parentheses. And that's all for this line. Let's move on to another one. Here we have a negative slope. In this case, when you write this equation, it would really look like -3x instead of -3 over 1x. But slopes are easier to look at when they're in fractions. So that's why I put the 1 there. It's always there. It's like 1 times Samantha. One Samantha is Samantha. We don't say, "Hi, one Samantha." We just say, "Hi, Samantha." And it's the same thing with this. You can put a 1 underneath anything and it doesn't change the number. So that's how we make that into a fraction. Notice we have a negative slope this time, and the line is going down. So that's how that negative sign relates to how it looks on the graph. How it relates to how the slope works this time, if we look at the point 0, 2, which is the y-intercept, and we go down 3 boxes and over 1 box, that is hitting the line again. This time it's a negative slope, so instead of going up, we're going to go down. So down 3 to the right 1. We don't go down 3 and to the left 1 because that would be a negative divided by a negative, and that's a positive. We only have one negative here, so we're only going to go in the negative direction once. And we're going to go down 3 over 1. By the way, negative 3 divided by 1 is the same thing as 3 divided by negative 1 is the same thing as the negative out in front, 3 divided by 1. Doesn't matter which one you use. So whatever floats your boat is fine. Those three things are all the same. All right, next we're going to look at the y-intercept. This time it's a positive 2. Again, if you put 0 in for x, negative 3 times 0 is 0. You get y equals 2. So that's how you go from the intercept to the equation to the point. And the x-intercept this time does not cross at a grid crossing. It's somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4. If we want to figure out what that is, that's happening where y equals 0. So you can put a 0 in for y, solve for x, and you'll have the other half of that point. And a lot of times when people get stuck on a problem, it's because they stop thinking, oh, this is a half a point. I can just solve for the other half of the point by putting a number in my equation. So that's all I have to say about lines, except when you have a line and you're going to graph it and you need to know what's going on with it, it's best to put your equation in this slope-intercept form before you start. So that will really help you out. And that's all. Have a great week.